Welcome back into Yellowhammer Radio with Cliff Sims. We're going to go straight to the phone lines now because we are privileged to be joined by a good friend of the program, Congressman Bradley Byrne. Congressman Byrne, how are you today?
I'm doing good. It's good to be with you.
Well, I know you only got a few minutes, so I just want to jump right into it. And just for a little bit of background, we're going to talk about the BP oil spill settlement. Now, back in 2010, the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill spilled right off the coast of Alabama, 100 miles off the coast. Golly, it was just millions of barrels of oil, killed 11 people, and it caused just huge. There were huge implications because of that for Alabama's economy, specifically on the Gulf Coast, and the environment there as well. And so this past week, the governor and attorney general announced a $2.3 billion settlement that the state of Alabama will get. Now, you have expressed already some concerns with this settlement, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to come on the air and explain to our listeners exactly what's going on and maybe some of the concerns that you have with the settlement.
Well, I appreciate it. It's always good to be on the show. This is an extremely important issue in the coastal part of Alabama. This area was devastated by that oil spill and devastated in just about every way you can imagine. And a year or so afterwards, Congress passed a law called the Restore Act, and the intent of that law was to make sure that the vast majority of the dollars that were recovered that would have to be paid by BP as a result of the spill would flow into local communities down there, either directly to the cities or the counties, or through this council that was set up under the law called the Restore Act Council. And so the intent was is that local people and this local council made up of local officials would make the decision where the vast majority where the dollars flow. But if you look at the settlement, the vast majority of the dollars are flowing through the federal bureaucracy or through state government into the general fund, which we know have so many problems. So this settlement goes against the intent and I think in many cases the actual wording of the Restore Act. And it's hurt the people down here by depriving them of the money that should have been coming down here to help us continue to recover and to be able to be resilient against the next spill if there is one.
Now, one of the things that really stuck out to me about this is particularly frustrating is the secrecy that has surrounded it. I mean, I've been trying to help our writers over at Yellowhammer News how we're going to cover this and all the different details. And the fact of the matter is the details are pretty sketchy. I mean, it's just difficult to even get access to exactly what's going on. Is that a frustration that even as a congressman that you guys have had, the inability to get the details surrounding the actual settlement?
Absolutely. I mean, this is flowing under a federal law, the Restore Act. I made phone calls. My staff made phone calls on Thursday when it came out. We were told that a lot of the details we were looking for were confidential, could not be released. And so here are public entities, the U.S. Justice Department, the State Attorney General's Department, agreeing, and this is an order that's being agreed to, so it's not like the judge is doing it on her own. This is being done by virtue of an agreement of the parties. So the parties have agreed to keep it all confidential, except for just like sort of the top-line terms. Well, I can understand why BP wants to be confidential. If I were in their shoes, I probably would too. But I don't understand why a federal agency like the Justice Department, why state agencies would want to keep this thing confidential. So I've got some concerns about that. I have some concerns about the fact that this has the effect that I just said it has on local officials down here, and none of the local officials down in my district were consulted before this deal was reached. So this was reached by a handful of people, including people in the Obama Justice Department. And I think it has ended up being something that is not a good deal for the people in my district. And as you know, I've been speaking out about that.
How do you feel about the actual number, that $2.3 billion, which I think the total settlement was something like $18.5 billion that's split among multiple states, and Alabama's share of that is $2.3 billion, give or take. What do you think about that total number? Were you happy with that?
No, I wasn't happy with that. I thought we should have been able to do better with how much we get from Alabama. Let me just tell you, there's $400 million in that $2.3 billion that was announced last week that we can't identify exactly where it's coming from or where it's going. I mean, the governor and the attorney general have said that money's coming. I'm not doubting them, but I can't tell you exactly what it is or where it's going. So I'm a little unsure about that. Of the $1.9 million that has been identified, only $308 million actually comes from the Restore Act Council down here to be spent by them through their purview however they want. There's another about $290 million that they'll get that they have to spend specifically for certain categories of environmental work down here. But if you do that number, if you buy those two numbers together and you accept the $2.3 billion figure, that means only 25% of Alabama's portion went to local people down here in my district. And I think that's ridiculous, given the fact that we suffered so badly down here. And now we've seen this money is going to be flowing through a bunch of federal bureaucrats, one of which, by the way, is NOAA, which is the agency that's given us such a hard time about this red snapper fishing down here. So we've got a bunch of money flowing through a bunch of federal bureaucrats who don't care about us, that don't half understand us. And we've got $1 billion of what's coming to the state that's going to go directly into the general fund to solve a problem that wasn't created by the oil spill to begin with. So every way you look at it, it seems to be a bad deal to me.
Talking to Congressman Bradley Byrne about the BP oil spill settlement. Congressman, I don't want to put you in a tough spot here to talk bad about your fellow elected officials and party members in any way necessarily, but the Alabama Attorney General Luther Strange was the one who took the lead on this case. I mean, he was kind of for all the states. I mean, Alabama was taking the lead, which now that we've kind of seen the deal and you're expressing some frustrations with the actual outcome, it seems like they should have been better positioned than anybody to make sure that their home state got a good deal out of this. How is it that with the Alabama Attorney General leading the case, and then obviously you guys are you work together on a lot of different things, the Attorney General, the governor, our congressional delegation, how is it that you guys are still in the dark on some of the details when Alabama's, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but I guess Alabama played such a role, our elected officials played such a role in this process. How is it that folks like you that should be dialed in on what's going on are being kept in the dark on some of these things?
I don't know. You're right. We generally work very well together. We're a very close team. The state government officials and the federal officials from Alabama, we work together on a lot of different things. I did make a phone call to the Attorney General and had a discussion with him late Thursday evening. But there was a lot of things he couldn't tell me because, as I said before, he said that they were confidential. And it is a little frustrating, to be honest with you, that, this is something that should be out in the public domain, whether it's me asking that question or you asking that question or a citizen asking that question. So I don't have an answer for your question. We tend to work together, and a lot of us are good friends. And so I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is that the people in my district didn't get a good deal out of this settlement. And I thought it was important for me to say that. Now, there are some things they could do to make it better. I mean, if I think this is unlikely, but if they could take a big portion of the money that's coming to the state and put it through the Restore Act Council, they could make that decision at the state level. I don't think they will. I think that they're so hungry for that money to help solve the problem they've got in the general fund budget. I think they're going to use every bit of that to try to solve the general fund budget problem, which, as I said before, was not caused by this oil spill. So the people who are hurt are not going to get by the oil spill are not going to get the benefit of this recovery money, and that's unfortunate in my judgment.
Now, much of our listening audience is in Central and North Alabama, and I've heard people say up here that you guys obviously in South Alabama took the brunt of this catastrophe, but it ultimately had economic implications that rippled throughout the state, and there were state services and state help that was available to the people down there when it happened, and so maybe some of the funds at least should go to folks in other parts of the state. Make the case to folks in our Central and North Alabama listening audience that what should happen with this money is that it should all flow down there to the coast.
Well, I don't think all of it should come down here because I think there was some loss to the general state coffers as a result of this, nowhere near $1 billion. So I do think some of it should flow. I think that it's completely out of whack here with the way
so it's the
done.
Proportionality is more your concern there.
Proportionality is a concern. But let me just say this. There was nobody down here on the coast that begrudged one penny of the money that came to North and Central Alabama as a result of those tornadoes 4 years ago.
Sure.
And the governor rightfully fought to keep every one of those dollars in that area where people were hurt. I just wish we had done the same thing down here on the coast as a result of this oil spill because we didn't. And I feel like my part of the state got shortchanged when we were the ones, as you said, that got the real brunt of it. Should some of it have gone to the general fund? Yes, I didn't have any doubt about that. But to see $1 billion go to the state and to see only $308 million come down here, I think that is very much a disproportionate thing.
Now, you deal mostly with federal politics now, but the thing about this particular situation is I think there's a pretty an interesting interplay between the federal and state politics that are at play, because you got a state government that is general fund budget crisis. I hesitate to call it a crisis because I don't think it's a crisis, but they've tried to build it up to be in an attempt to raise taxes and do some other things. But you've got the state, for better or worse, is addicted to federal money. It's like they all this one-time money over the years that would come in and patch this general fund, and then finally the one-time money runs out, and now they're trying to scramble to figure things out. Do you have? I don't know exactly where I'm going with this question, but I mean, what do you think about the dynamics there, that you've got the general fund is in such dire straits here in Alabama, and how that may be affecting what is ultimately done with this BP oil spill money? There basically just seems to me that some people are just reaching for it, like, oh, we got ourselves another bailout here.
Well, I was hearing 4 years ago, that when I was asking the question, what are y'all going to do about the general fund problem? And I heard people in the legislature tell me, we're going to get the BP money. And I said, you can't get the BP money because they passed this Restore Act, and the law doesn't allow you to do that. Oh, yeah, we're going to get it. And that was a concern that many of us down here had from the beginning. I talked to several people that were involved in putting the Restore Act together. Congressman Byrne, my predecessor, he was very clear that was the intent, to not let that happen. But it worked out to happen that way anyway. And as I say, that's unfortunate. There is a lot of pressure in Montgomery to come up with some solution that's not painful with regard to the general fund budget. I understand that. And I've been there in the legislature, and I understand this problem. This is a big problem, but it's a crisis or not. It's a big problem. And the question is, how are they going to fix it? Well, one of the ways that they're fixing it is they're taking money that should be coming down to these communities on the coast that were hurt. They're taking that money and using it to solve a problem that was created years ago. This is not a new problem. This has been going on for at least 15 years. And to take money that should be coming down here on the coast to provide a big part of the solution to the problem that's been created in the general fund because of poor management in Montgomery, I just frankly think that's unfair, and I wish they hadn't done it.
Well, I know you got to go here in just a second, but one more question. You were in the Alabama State Senate. You ran for governor. You know these state issues. These things it's nothing new. You guys were dealing with this when you were there in the legislature. They're still dealing with these budgeting issues now. What's your take on what they ought to do?
Well, what I said 4 years ago when I was, being active through my foundation, what's going on in Montgomery, was they needed to start right then to go through a massive reform of state government, consolidate state departments and agencies, consolidate state functions, look at other ways where you can get a much more efficient use and application of state dollars. And there are a lot of things that can be combined. I know that they've been looking at various things. You do all of that first, and you get as far as you possibly can go with that before you even begin a discussion about taxes. I mean, I took a no new taxes pledge when I ran for governor in 2010, and I had no intention of breaking that promise because it's a promise. So, I wish they were doing more of that and less talking about tax increases. And now they're taking money away from my constituents, part of this settlement, to help solve it, and I don't like that either.
Well, Congressman, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. I hope you'll keep us updated on how this thing plays out.
Great to be with you, Cliff.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. That's Congressman Bradley Byrne talking to us about the BP oil spill settlement that has broad ramifications both for folks down there on the Gulf Coast and people all over the state that are watching what's going on in Montgomery right now with the general fund budget. When we take a break here and come back, we're going to be with Alex Pappas. He is from the Daily Caller. We're going to talk a little federal politics. Cliff Sims, Yellowhammer Radio, back in a minute.